Everything we farm with no forces of death in the vineyard. There's no synthetic chemicals or anything. And in the winery, everything I make, whether it's 2 barrels or 100,000 cases, is native fermented. The only thing in my wine besides the grapes and the vessel they're resting in is a little SO2, and that's it. I mean, I'm inspired by true winemaking, wine that is honest and has integrity. I can go out and put myself out there on the line every time I visit someone because I know that I did my work. I want my wine to taste like IPA or smell like IPA.
Sit back and grab a glass. It's Wine Talks with Paul K.
Hey, welcome to Wine Talks with Paul K. And we are in studio today. We're here to talk to Charles Smith all the way down from Walla Walla. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here. So got out fresh out the plane.
Yeah, you had quite a tour already. Vegas and
I started in Seattle on Sunday, headed to Las Vegas, came this morning from Sacramento, and I'll be flying out tomorrow night to St. Louis.
So let's talk about that for a second, because this is, I was talking about Jessica Kogan here. We were talking about the experiential side of wine, and that kind of the needle seems to be moving back to that. You see this patch here, which is Les Amis de Vin, a chapter my father ran in the 70s. Are we doing this to get people? Are we meeting consumers, meeting vendors? What are we doing?
We're meeting about everybody out there. We're meeting the consumers, and we're meeting people that are in the trade. I mean, wine runs, from top to bottom, and we want to see everybody.
So are you showing the wines at dinners? Or are you talking to like today you have a meeting, you're going to go show the distributors or retailers?
Oh, yeah, A to Z, do it all.
And how often a year do you do this?
I used to, before COVID, I did it all the time. I mean, sometimes I'd be on the road for 60 days straight.
Wow.
But the thing about it is, there's wine and then there's the wine business, and you have to get out there and show yourself and see the people and want to see what people are talking about. And that's what's really interesting about it. I mean, I've got to go to so many great places around this country that I would never found myself there if it wasn't for wine.
Isn't that great?
It's really cool. Yeah.
In fact, a woman I was talking about who's 98, who lives in South Africa, she says, you must come see me because we're friends. I'm like, wow, that's a really profound thing to say, because wine does do that. It makes friends all over the world.
Yeah, we were making some friends last night, drinking plenty of dinner.
But that's not the way it started out, right? You're reading your background, you did use the business of wine is complicated. We know that. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Sure.
But the ethereal value of that great glass of wine, that 1999 Syrah you made,
yes,
that started you down the path. I mean, was it just for fun? What were you doing?
No, it was for survival. I needed a job. So the thing is, I had an opportunity that was laid before me, and I took it. Necessity is the mother of invention, and I had necessities, and I needed to be inventive. So I just did it. I never went take a winemaking class. I've never worked a day at another winery. I've never read a book about winemaking. I just did it. I showed up 2 days earlier when I was going to custom crush my wine. I watched them do what they were doing. I would couple that with everything else that I knew. I stepped right in and made my first wine, 1999 Walla Walla Valley Syrah, 15 barrels.
I'm sorry to say it this way, but it seemed like all the things were against you, right? You didn't go to school, didn't go to enology school. I sent an intern off recently to Cornell. She started her thing. She's taking bio and all the things. And here you are, bootstrapping it. By necessity, making 300 cases of Syrah, which is not the most popular grape in the world, at least maybe it was less now then. And then you went out to sell it. I mean, that's great to make it. That's so fun. It's so romantic. We make wine, and what a great lifestyle, right? But then you realize you got to sell the stuff.
Yeah, that was not really the challenge, because I think when you're putting some really delicious wine with a label that people cannot comprehend, you put it in their glass and they try it, and these are people that are buying for restaurants and wine shops and so forth. They know a good glass of wine when they taste it, and it made it pretty easy, because my 1999 Walla Walla Valley Syrah was absolutely delicious, and who doesn't love delicious wine?
What was the label?
It's K. Vintners.
It was the original label was K. Vintners.
Yeah, the black and white ones with the big black K on it.
So I had not seen your Charles Smith label until I think it was when the Wall Street Journal Club, and as you guys know, I was a Wine of the Month Club. I've done this since the 70s. That's a picture of my dad in 75. But one of the first big clubs that came out that was, competitive at that time, was the Wall Street Journal Club, and there was this bottle, this white label with black ink. I don't know if it was a Charles Smith brand or the Velvet Devil.
Could have been.
And I got, well, who is this guy? What is this brand? And
Right.
But the one thing that's interesting is a legit brand. It wasn't something that they had made up. So you thought this was fun. You did it. You sold it all. I guess you had an Astro van, some kind of.
Well,
you
yeah,
were really schlepping the stuff.
Well, I started with $5,000 borrowed in a van and borrowed grapes as well. So, like I said, you just get in and do it. Like this morning, and I got up really early. It sucked, but I needed to come down here and see you today, and so I just, pulled my pants on, pulled my boots on, and walked out the door, and here I am.
And so what?
Really,
Inspiring though, was that an aspiring, beginning? Like you did it, you sold it, people thought this is really good, and you're like, wow, I kind of like this.
Well, I was just really pleased that people were responding really positively to my wine, and I think people found it somewhat refreshing that, that I was, just being myself, and being the owner and the winemaker or whatever you want to say, showing up and doing it. I had my van full of wine, drove from Wall with 84 cases, and my Astro van, which means the front wheels, tires were barely on the road. And I knew I'd stop at the first account that I knew that might take the most wine to take some weight off the back.
Yeah, right.
And I would be in Seattle until every case was sold. I'd say, hey, you want to try my wine? Yeah, when can we buy it? I said, right now, it's in the car. Wrote in the boys, they wrote me a check, and down the road I went.
So you were not only winemaker, you were a shipping guy, you were
I was the only employee.
accounting, you were...
Oh, the accounting was dreadful. I mean, a few years later, we got a little bit up on this kind of the accounting side of it. But it was just me. I mean, I was the only one there for the first 6 years.
Was really? So 6 years?
I mean, I started House Wine, which I sold to Precept Brands, and I started House Wine brand in 2004. And by the time I sold it was 93,000 cases, and I hired my first person to take care of the financials and the shipping part of my wines. And then I started Charles Smith Wines right after that, when, Kung Fu Girl and the Velvet Devil and all that stuff. And, but along the way, I've been, kind of not reinventing myself, but continued down the road doing new things, not repeating my way that I do things. I mean, everything we farm with no forces of death in the vineyard. There's no synthetic chemicals or anything. And in the winery, everything I make, whether it's 2 barrels or 100,000 cases, is native fermented. The only thing in my wine besides the grapes and the vessel they're resting in is a little SO2, and that's it. I mean, I'm inspired by true winemaking, wine that is honest and has integrity, and therefore it's bulletproof for me. I can go out and put myself out there on the line every time I visit someone because I know that I did my work.
When did that come around? Like you made this first cases of Syrah, and then you thought, I'm going to do this again. Or whatever.
No, I was going to continue. I mean, it was
going to always be this natural ferment. You always use natural yeast. You were going to build from the ground up. Yes. What would be today, we call it organic or natural, whatever words you want to use.
Well, it's not what is labeled as natural, but I mean, I'm on the right side of sulfur. There's the right amount, and there's the wrong amount. The wrong amount is too much, and the wrong amount is none.
Right.
Hey,
have a listen to Gavin Slabbert. Just came in from South Africa. I just released 4. This is actually the first of 4 interviews I did with winemakers from South Africa. It's an amazing conversation, and there's tons of stories to tell from down there. I think you got to listen. And don't forget May Elian Lankesong, who was also in South Africa, but was born in Bordeaux. She's 98 years old, and she tells the stories of the Nazis coming into her parents' chateau and literally shooting it up. Have a listen. Also, meet Jessica Kogan, one of the brilliant digital marketeers in our industry. She came from the fashion icon Donna Karan. It's Karan, right? Karen? Young lady? And she applied her know-how to wine and is now on a company called Connect the Dots, where they're doing digital marketing, has incredible, insightful things to say about that, but not why we're here.
I don't want my wine to taste like IPA or smell like IPA, I want to smell like wine. But for each their own, people like natural wine, go your own way, do what you want, but it's not what I do. I just make more, kind of old world style wines with integrity, but I make them in the new world.
Well, that's the good point, though, because when we were tasting wine here all these years, and they started coming out with, and look, you and I know there's no definition for natural wine. It doesn't exist. The FDA has never even heard of it. It's just it's an idea. They all tasted like kombucha, and it's like, wait a minute. The world has been making wine that way for thousands of years. It wasn't until the 40s or whatever where the copper sulfate was introduced by the Bordelais, all those kinds of things. It was always the way you're making them, wasn't it? I mean, wasn't that?
Well, I think that the wines didn't travel so much, and I think that, you know, the idea of some stability is really important. I mean, if you go to a restaurant, you order raviolis today, you find them delicious, and tomorrow you go and order them again, and it's a completely different thing. How many times are you going to go back to that restaurant?
That's true.
You know, I mean, if I'm buying a bottle of wine, I mean, I would like the next one I buy to be fairly similar to the one I just had, you know? And, you know, if people think it's, you know, playing Russian roulette with drinking wine, I mean, if they find that fun, hey, like I said, for each their own. I just don't choose that for myself.
I think that's probably the basis of your growth, because, you know, so many wineries doctor stuff up to make them taste the same. You're still bringing to the table something that's reflective of what you've been doing.
Certainly.
But not, you know, the crap they're bringing from Europe for 50 cents a liter kind of thing.
No, I'm making the wine that I remember inspired me and why I fell in love with wine in the beginning. And it was when I was working as a migrant restaurant worker. I worked winters in Palm Springs and summers in Lake Tahoe, Napa Valley.
I didn't say that in your bio.
Well, you know, can't put it all, but all your life experiences there. And I worked at this restaurant at the Spa Hotel called the Agua Caliente Room. And, you know, you had a maitre d', captains, front waiter, back waiter, and busboys. And I walked to the kitchen to get a job. And I got a job as a back waiter bringing food out. And I realized that the captains, they always had these service bar, you know, near the kitchen, and always had this cold white wines and the ice buckets. And they were just drinking this wine all night. Like, what is it? And eventually, you know, I just snuck some for myself. I was like, it was just, you know, I'd been working, it was warm, and I was, you know, running around the restaurant doing what I'm doing. And it was fresh, white, and minerally. And it was exactly what I needed. It served the exact purpose, what I think wine is supposed to be about.
Wow.
And believe it or not, it was Parducci Sauvignon Blanc.
Parducci Sauvignon Blanc.
A very basic wine. But back then, Parducci Sauvignon Blanc probably only was grapes.
Yeah.
And I imagine they're the same. But what I'm saying is, I fell in love with that wine because of that. And a very, you know, serviceable wine. And it's all I needed. And that's what I want to do. For me, you know, if wine isn't pleasant and feels pleasant in your mouth, there's no point in even drinking it.
So this experience at the restaurant, that said, wait a minute, this is really interesting stuff. Because you hadn't really experienced wine at that level before that.
No. And one thing I noticed when I started working, and I said, you know, for about a couple of weeks, I noticed there was this one waiter that apparently must have been like the best waiter because he had a medal around his chest, like he'd won some waiter competition. And I asked one of the captains, I said, who's that? He said, that's the wine guy. I said, the wine guy, what does he do? He comes in late, leaves early, drinks all night, and we have to tip him out. And I'm like, I want his job.
That sounded pretty good.
Yeah, it sounded like a really good.
I'm assuming then the medal was a taste of
Tassion, yeah. I thought he had a medal, but, you know, what did I know? I'm a high school dropout from Loomis, California. So what do I know?
We don't see those around much. You know, the last time I saw a taste of was with Kevin O'Leary, the Shark Tank guy.
Right.
He was on the show and he was wearing that thing. And I go, wow, I haven't seen that for years.
No.
So anyway, you found that in the hospitality side, this was an amazing experience. It's your aha moment. Everybody has them in the wine business. But then you go on to say, you talk about you want to create wines for the people. What does that mean?
It means that I want to have people, everyone should have access to good wine no matter how much money they have. I mean, I never made $50,000 in my life until I was 43 years old. And, you know, my fortunes changed. But the thing is, I knew the good bottles and I could find them in a set, you know, amongst a sea of selections. And the idea with, you know, my first is the wine integrity that I'm putting in the bottle, because everybody should have access to good wine. And secondly, I'm known for my labeling and branding simply because I want to be able to communicate the language of wine to people who don't speak wine so they can have access to the good stuff and find their way through all this shit that's actually in the market.
Thank you.
And give them real wine that doesn't have adjuncts. I mean, there's over 70 things that you can put in an American wine. Some of the things I can't even pronounce. One of them, Well, if you put that in after 5 days, you don't put another chemical in, it turns to strychnine. I mean, this is like nuts.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, there's over 70 additives in there's wine. You know why they have them? You know why they're legal? Because people use them.
I guess that's the thing. Defoaming agents, color, sugar.
Insanity.
Yeah.
I mean, wine is supposed to be from the earth.
That's right.
I mean, it's something,
Maybe that's why.
one of the most supreme things we could ever imagine putting in our mouth.
Maybe that's why your wine just make people feel something. There's you went by it actually, Galliano. He just passed away, unfortunately. And I went to go see him years ago. He had a beautiful 1,500-gallon redwood tank of Zin. And he made good wines. He actually was a pretty good winemaker. And he puts it in a glass, and it was a little prematurely orange.
Okay.
But I loved it. I said, yeah, I don't know if I could sell this because of the color. He goes, oh, we can fix that. So we went into the lab. He opened the Norge refrigerator, and there's a bottle of Mega Purple or Mega Red, whatever it's called, that sugar additive. And he drops in the glass, and the whole thing changed. I go, no, man, I can't sell that to people. Now that I see you do it, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Because this industry is ebbs and flows, and we seem to be in a depression right now. We seem like millennials aren't drinking Gen Zs, they're drinking RTDs and all this stuff that's out there, White Claw. How do you maintain this philosophy and get wines like this to people at a price that they can afford?
Well, I just stay the course. Let everybody else muck about and trying to maximize their profits. I mean, I know what side my bread is buttered on. Yeah. It's because the consumer who buys my wine helps me pay my insurance, all the folks that work with me at the winery. This is how we make our money. So how do we want to do it? We want to do it the honest way, the right way. We want to earn every dollar we make by doing what is right. And that is what we stay true to. These other companies, they want to do what they want to do. I think they're destroying the wine business themselves, because who wants a drink? You can go to a restaurant, get a really good glass of a pint of beer by somebody that's passionate about beer, a good brewer, and it's poured in a clean glass with a nice head on it, delicious. And then maybe you have a bar with a big back bar, and you got some bartender there that's passionate about cocktails and making you a nice drink. That's around $10, a pint's around $8. And then, or you can get a glass of wine that's full of adjuncts. If I was a 23-year-old person, I'm not drink that wine. That's crap.
You can
I'm going to drink the beer made by a passionate person with integrity. I'm going to drink a cocktail made by this delightful person behind the bar that is into it. Or I'm going to drink this wine where, it's not even, it's disrespectful, I believe.
That's the first time somebody has sat here and explained the terroir in the glass that comes from the philosophy.
Right.
Because terroir being the general term of weather and soil and picking conditions, all that. But romantically, I think it has everything to do with what you're saying right now.
Yeah. There's a right place for everything.
Yeah.
And, whether it's, my substance Sauvignon Blanc, whether it's one of my Cave Vintners Syrah, whether, whatever or my new Pinot Noir project, Golden West, it is in the right spot. For example, I make this Pinot Noir called Golden West. And you think, okay, what Pinot Noir in Washington State? Well, 60 years ago, somebody would have said, Pinot Noir in Oregon, you got to be crazy. Now the person is a genius. Now, so now probably you're going, Charles Smith, he's crazy. But, I thought about it. Most people think the best Pinot Noirs come from France, from Burgundy. Well, what would we possibly have in common with where we are? Turns out we're at the same latitude as Beaune, where my Pinot Noir. We are continental climate, not coastal, like Beaune.
Right.
We are within 1 degree of the growing season in Volnay, ripening with 1 degree.
Wow.
And also, we are over 50% limestone, which is what you get on this hill, in the first cruise of post-Robinet. Right. There's 4 reasons why Washington State, you should be able to make absolutely superior, killer Pinot Noir. I just named 4 reasons why I could do it.
Well, it has been known for Bordeaux varietals. You got some Rhone varietals, and now here you are biting off something interesting. We went to the 1989 McMinnville, Oregon Pinot Noir Festival the second year, and they had invited Duran and Jadot and all these people to. And what's interesting, I wanted to reflect on this. Used to back in those days, even my dad's days, he would say, "Oh, this is very Burgundian," or "This is very Bordelais," or "This is," and he would refer back to regions that aren't where you're growing, and you're growing now Walla Walla. I'm assuming that's the region.
Well, not the Pinot Noir. This would be the Royal Slope, but
okay. So Royal Slope Pinot Noir.
Yes,
but it's going to be its own thing.
It is absolutely its own thing.
How many vintages now?
First vintage was 2018 and just released in 2021.
And every year you're feeling more.
Yeah, if we had a couple of glasses here,
Yeah, I know.
you know exactly what I was talking about.
That'd be really interesting because, Pinot Noir is just not something you talk about, even though Oregon is very successful with it.
Well, there's great growers making Oregonian and great winemakers making Oregonian Pinot Noir. And It should be Oregonian because that's where they're making it. Same thing for Californians, but it's a different flavor. It's a different sensation.
Yeah,
and the one wine that I'm making in Washington is also something that you would not expect domestically, very earth-driven wines.
Pinot Noir being a conduit really to its growing conditions.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very vivid and transparent wine.
Have you been down the wine aisle at a supermarket lately?
Yeah, yesterday. I was in Sacramento visiting Rayleigh's supermarkets, yes. I was.
And what did you see there? Did you see, to me, I'm going to tell you what I see before I put my own foot in my mouth, but I took a picture the other day of this giant shelf of Cabernet with a shelf talker on every freaking bottle, and it's all the same stuff. It's all the same formula. It's sugared up, and if it's Napa, it doesn't matter where it's from.
It's a wine cocktail.
Yeah. So how do we get out of that? How do we tell people, look, there's something so interesting out here?
I think when they eventually, which will never happen because there's powers that be won't want it, that you need to put ingredients on the back of the bottle. When they realize that it's their wine is more than just grapes.
Are you doing that? Are you putting ingredients on it yet?
Not yet, but I will. But I just feel that it's kind of like the way we farm and the way that we ferment. I don't need to write it on the bottle. People should expect that when they're getting wine produced by Charles Smith, of course it's not going to be junked up. Of course it's going to be pure. Of course it's going to have integrity because that's the only way that guy would do it. And I'm that guy. So
it said here that you're the largest now manufacturer of wine in Washington.
That is incorrect. I am the largest independent producer of wine in Washington State, the largest winemaker-owned winery. I have quite a number of projects. I have K Vintners, I have Sixto, I have Wines of Substance, I have Vino, I have Casa Smith. Am I forgetting anything? Oh yeah, Golden West.
Are they each philosophically different brands, or are they varietally different? Is that what you try to do, or how do you?
They are. The philosophy is a clear thread through everything that I do, but the idea is I approach every wine and every project if it's the only wine that I do.
Wow, that's a
it should be that way, right?
That's a statement. Yes, it should.
No, and I also make this. No, everything is front and forward. I drink more of my $12 to $15 bottle of wines than my more lofty priced wines. And because the only difference between my wines between less priced and high price is the yield from the vineyard and the time aging. That's it. Everything I make.
This is fascinating because you've created this philosophy from the ground up, right? You were in necessity making wine because you needed to pay the bills. By the way, my necessity right now, because I don't have a company functionally selling wine, is voice acting.
Okay.
I want to become a voice actor. That's my back against the wall. Probably should start making some money. And so I've been working on voice acting. That's what I want to do.
I probably wouldn't be very good at it.
So fun. No, I think you might be, but it's for fun. It's like, I love the necessity part of this, but you grew up with a philosophy. You started with a philosophy and you're still doing that. I think that's obviously a very important part of your success, because if you're just going to make menage a trois out of, sugar and grapes or things like that, you're just going to be part of the Me Too movement. We have this too, and it's going to be on the shelf.
The thing is, there's some really good, wine stewards in the restaurants and in the grocery store. We met this really lovely person at Nugget up in Sacramento yesterday. And they're putting their best foot forward to do the best work they possibly can. So, there are people that are really passionate about it, but there's also, it's a big business, wine business.
Well, it is a big business. The funny thing, this company started in the 70s, and it started really, once it got into a direct-to-consumer mail-order type company, it really was relying on the fact that you're going to find good stuff available. I used to buy odd pallets from Sebastiani they made and never tried to sell, or Parmesan port. I was able to find. And so, but those things are gone now. everybody's bringing in this junk like I talked about earlier. They bring in 50 cent a liter white wine from Spain. They put it in 20 different labels and they make it look really good and they put it out there. People buy it. And then they go, this wasn't that great. And this is a bad thing for the industry.
Yeah. I mean, you're killing the golden goose.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't make sense to me, but once again, I'm not the one making decisions at these other companies. I'm just making my decision and our aim is true. And there's lots of kind of fantastic winemakers here in the U.S. and in Europe. And,
You're seeing, now that this, you're doing what you're doing and that's what you need to be doing and continue to do. But do you see these global shifts affecting your business? Let's just take White Claw, ready to drink cocktail, non-alcoholic wines, orange wines, all these things that have, which in my opinion are just ebbs and flows. And we always had them. We had Bartles and James,
exactly,
wine coolers.
You nailed it.
They just kind of come and go. Yeah. So
thank you for your support.
Yeah.
Bartles and James. You had California Tour. You had where, microbrews got really important. The ready to drink happened because of COVID, because people couldn't go to a bar and people are not really that much into mixing their own drinks at home. So it was an easy way to do it. But, bars are now open. People can go and socialize. Pubs are open. Wine bars and restaurants are open. You have these things all through, same like with the White Claw and so forth. The thing is, let's say you're in Seattle, you're going to go see baseball and, your friends all drinking beer, but you don't really like beer that much, but you drink one anyways. Or you go get a glass of wine, but the wine's not very good. You're going to get the stadium. It's always these big brands. And then you have this fresh, fruity thing to drink instead because you don't really want beer. You don't want a glass of wine that sucks. Mm-hmm. So you drink this. So it has a purpose. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
It does have a purpose. And the thing is, it's an alternative, bubbly, cold beverage for people that probably don't like beer.
You said something profound, actually, because you just separated the consumerism of wine, the people we need to have do this. My dad once was driving a Napa in 74, stopped to drink at the Sutter home, met a guy named Bob Trincaro, and they tasted the pink wine. Right. And so that brought a lot of people to the wine trade that weren't drinking wine before.
Right.
And then they learned that you don't have to drink sweet pink wine.
No, but I mean, what is it? Sutter home white Zinfandel. I mean, that's millions of people starting to drink wine.
That's right.
I mean, we needed that, and it helped create the expanse of the American wine trade. So my hat off to Sutter home for that, for sure. Thank you.
Maybe the White Claws of the world are kind of necessary to get started, or the sparkling canned, brutes, the stuff that people.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
And then you stay the course with the Charles Smith brands, and you, when they're ready, you got to have an honest glass of wine. Yeah. And that's why I call it now an honest glass of wine.
True. Wine that's true. Absolutely.
We're out of time already, which is unbelievable.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It went down so smooth and easy.
Well, I know you have an important day today. What is after your next meeting? You have, you're here for a few more days in Los Angeles, or what do you do? Yeah,
I'm here in the Bay Area, Southern. I was there. I'm here in the Southern California for today and tomorrow, and like I said, then I'm off. I'll be meeting long-time clients, new clients, going around talking about my wine, drinking some wine, hopefully drinking some good wine tonight at dinner, and I'll be out in Venice Beach tonight. So I'm just out running around. I think probably for lunch, we're going to probably go grab some little Mexican food and wash it down with ice cold beer.
Well, there's a few places around here I could tell you, turn you on to. And I think it's really important what you're doing as I wrap this up, because I think, because I spent 10 years digitally marketing, I sent 33 million emails my last full year in business here.
Wow.
So what it takes to create all that, and $500,000 on Facebook, $1 million on Google Ads, all those things. And it's the conclusion I've come to. It's all going to implode, because you cannot deliver as many messages that are being delivered to everybody's phone and sell enough to cover the cost to do all this. And it's going to go back to what you're doing today.
Well, there's going to be a point where people are just going to put their phone down because they realize they don't have a life any longer. I mean, I'll go to a restaurant, you see 6 people in their 20s all sitting around, attractive, nice-looking people at a nice restaurant, and they're all staring at their phones and put their phone down and look at each other, I mean,
Can you talk to my wife about? No, I'm kidding. Just
yeah,
well, it's such a pleasure having you here, Charles. I hope we can do it again one day.
I'm available.
Maybe up in Walla Walla.
Can't wait. Me up in Walla Walla or at my winery in Seattle, House of Smith, Jet City.
You're on.
Yep.
Cheers.
Cheers.